Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for what is going to be the first All in Crypto video of 2024. I am wishing you all a happy new year, and we are back after a short break here at the channel. And a lot has happened over that short break, the kind of festive periods. We've seen lots of ETF news. We've seen lots of regulatory news, which is where we're going to start the video off on. You know, the cryptocurrency industry right now is on the cusp of becoming regulated. This is necessary for institutional adoption, certainly in the likes of the United States, and we are seeing a lot of progress there. So an ETF for Bitcoin is imminent. This has created, I think, a lot of the price news. And also, we've likely seen institutions, and we've looked at this through things like CoinShares and Grayscales, actually put money in ready for the inevitable at this point approval of a Bitcoin ETF. So there's been a lot of news surrounding that. There's been a lot of regulatory news, which is really where we're going to start the video off. And then as it is the start of 2024, and this is the first daily cryptocurrency market update we are doing, we're going to take an overview, a broad look at the markets. Generally, 2023 was a great year for us, despite all the volatility that happened in the crypto space. We have some altcoins that closed the year around about 300% up. And as a portfolio, our overall portfolio for 2023 and everything we bought in 2023, which consists of 20 something coins that you guys can unlock when you become a Patreon, essentially saw us close the year around about 50 to 60% up, which might not seem amazing, but given the basket of altcoins that we had, you know, I think we only had 2 positions that were actually down on the year. All the rest were in green, some of our highest to the tune of 300%, some of our kind of mid caps, the polka dots and such, in the sort of, 40, 50% range. So it was an amazing year, and we ultimately expect 2024 to be a better year. And that's why I really want to look and give an overview of the markets, not just looking at crypto, but looking at the stock market that looks set for more continuation. Even the likes of the Russell looks good. And of course, gold. And why are we looking as a crypto channel and a market analyzer of the crypto space at these other assets? Well, because there is correlation there. Typically, the same thing moves these assets, and the same environment causes similar markets. And actually, when we cross-reference, which is part of what we do here at the channel, Bitcoin against the stock market's in an uptrend, and we expect the stock market to do well, which says Bitcoin's going to do even better, and also the likes of gold. So 2024 is setting up to be a fabulous year. We are going to be covering that in this video towards the latter half. But I really wanted to start the video off perhaps on a bit of a dull note, unfortunately, and that is to do with regulations and new reporting obligations that took effect in the United States on the 1st of January. Let's go ahead and get over and take a look at this. So this was very recent news. This came out on the 2nd of January, but of course came into effect on the 1st of January. You can see a new crypto tax reporting obligation took effect on the 1st of January. And this, of course, is the actual public law. Effect date: the amendment made by this section shall apply to returns required to be filed and statements required to be furnished after December 31st. So that means it comes into effect on the 1st of January. If you receive 10,000 or more in crypto, you will now have an obligation to report the transaction, including names, addresses, SSC numbers, which is social security numbers in America, etc., to the IRS within 15 days until under threat of a felony charge. This is pretty insane, pretty aggressive regulations. This is the 6050I law that Coin Center challenged in federal court, and our case is in appeal. Unfortunately, for the time being, there is an obligation to comply, but it's unclear how one can comply. And this is the real problem with the cryptocurrency industry right now. Ultimately, there's a number of ways you can look at regulations, okay? You can look at regulations as essentially being something that hinders what this industry was trying to do in regards to moving away from these central powers, or you can look at it as actually it's going to propel it into mainstream institutional adoption. And we're seeing a lot of this taking place with the likes of the ETF. Lots of rumors that an ETF is going to be approved, and lots of people putting money on the table in regards to an ETF being approved sometime this month. I do think that's likely. However, this stuff is important to keep an eye on, because ultimately they are never going to allow you guys to have your own money value and transact it without them knowing and taking a cut of it. And that's what this is all about. Whether you like it or not, regulations in the UK and the United States and a large part of Europe, certainly in a large part of Asia as well, although a lot more lenient in places. Obviously, you've got the exception of China. You know, regulatory compliance is coming. It's here. It's part of how this industry grows and gets recognized, and real money can actually pour into it. And I still maintain my stance that the cryptocurrency market hasn't seen anything yet. We still hover around about a $1.5 trillion market cap. The dot-com boom in the 2000s got to 5.5 trillion, and that was back then with a far smaller money supply. And ultimately, crypto, in my opinion, is heading to the tens of trillions. And we're here to keep you guys entertained on that journey. Now, this is interesting. We released a report over on allincrypto.com. And we've got a really exciting announcement for you guys. You can see here over at the top right, we've got portfolio, and we've also got the charts. We are going to be dropping a free portfolio tracker that is private for everyone to use. And I'm really excited about that. We also have news about OKX. Implements new FCA regulations for UK users. It involves things like surveys and stuff like that. Many of you might have had to do it on Binance. But regulations are coming. They are here. And actually, there's two ways you can take this. Like I said, you can take this as either being rather negative or rather bullish for the industry as a whole. And I think there are definitely negative repercussions. I think the world that we live in is one that's controlled by a very small number of people. And it makes me wonder, why have they even allowed Bitcoin to get as far as it has? And they will try and maintain control. And this is part of it, using their bureaucratic agencies that they ultimately fund and sponsor and all this stuff to make sure that you, the little guy, doesn't make any money without them knowing. And that's what this is really all about. But some interesting regulation, quite a pivotal regulation, you know, to the tune of $10,000. If you don't report it within 15 days, you then may be facing a felony charge. Now, apparently this is only just for businesses, but this could be the case more broadly spread. And of course, in the United Kingdom, as we showed with the OKX news, they're already implementing this, and people and these exchanges are essentially giving your data to the likes of the FCA to make sure that nobody is money laundering or anything of the sort. So crypto regulations are coming. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Let's now move on to what I really want to get into, which is the markets. Now, 2023 was an exceptional year for us. Anybody who was a Patreon would have closed the year quite handsomely, and I'm sure you guys watching on the free view would have done quite well in regards to what we were predicting. And let's do a little bit of backtracking. So Bitcoin essentially got to our 42k target, which was generated from this inverse head and shoulders. And an inverse head and shoulders is a very common way for a market to bottom. Those of you that watch the channel regularly will know we were also long the stock market based on a very similar thing. We were also long the likes of the NASDAQ. You know, you had this pattern playing out. And crypto, in my opinion, is really just here. I mean, this inverse head and shoulders that we had for the NASDAQ hit its target beautifully, set up a falling wedge with 3 impulses in it, and now has gone on to see continuation, actually put in a new all-time high. And that's what we're expecting for markets across the board, guys, not just crypto. For the stock market, for everything, we are expecting new all-time high. So where does Bitcoin go from here? Well, one thing that I can tell you without having a technical target generated is that we are now in a confirmed uptrend. The uptrend was confirmed for me here and would have been kind of undone if we had slipped below what was just a retest of support. So we have now gone on and reached the 42,000. We, at one point, I believe it was yesterday, got to 45,900, so 46,000. I would like to see Bitcoin come up somewhere like here and then set up again an inverse head and shoulders. And you often do this with a market. You know, it's this thing called nestling head and shoulders, where you come up and down in kind of this head and shoulders pattern. You have a smaller head and shoulders that leads to a bigger one. I'll show you a perfect example of this as we're talking about it with the others dominance, which is something that we are watching. So this is the others dominance. You can see our smaller head and shoulders played out into what is now likely going to be a larger head and shoulders that could take you to around about new all-time highs for altcoin dominance. These are altcoins outside the top 10. Alt season is here, ladies and gentlemen, and your altcoins are now going to start outperforming Bitcoin. We were very long altcoins at the start of the year, and still are, more so than Bitcoin. And the real trade and reasoning behind that was because altcoins will outperform Bitcoin eventually. So what do we expect for the cryptocurrency market? Well, Bitcoin, in our opinion, is on the road to higher targets. We don't, other than what is perhaps a small continuation pattern, have that we can generate targets from, actually have any kind of roadmap in regards to where we're going next. We're looking for the 48,000 mark, and then, of course, new all-time highs after that. In my opinion, you're going to see new all-time highs in 2024. So that would be to the tune of 69,000. So we think Bitcoin's going to 100 plus K this year. And ultimately, the entire cryptocurrency market is actually in an uptrend now. You know, we were looking at this down here, we were looking at patterns, and now, of course, you've broken out. And it's not just the total market cap, including Bitcoin, excluding Bitcoin, and of course, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. Things are really getting ready to rock and roll. We've got lots of altcoins that are doing spectacularly. You are going to have pullbacks along the way. So the cryptocurrency market looks great for this year. We have, of course, looked at the likes of the stock market and where perhaps that may be heading. And ultimately, this is on the verge of going and putting in new all-time highs. So the stock market looks ready for continuation. Remember the macro backdrop here. So not just are we technically bullish on the likes of the S&P, the likes of the NASDAQ, we also have a macro backdrop which allowed us to largely pivot away from the crowd last year, certainly in January, and say, look, we're bullish on the markets now. FTX has capitulated. We're getting bullish as divergence on Bitcoin. You've got this macro turning. We started to look at rates, and actually, this is contrary to popular belief, but interest rates actually see the markets do well. Every time they've upped interest rate, the S&P has gone and closed higher from when they started upping interest rates to when they ended them. So this is the backdrop, and actually when they stopped upping interest rates, that's typically been a very good time for gold, and it's also been a very good time for the stock market. Now, the interesting thing here is not only does technically the stock market look sensational, but also gold does as well. And why are we talking about all of this on a crypto channel? So gold really, this is the sort of pattern that it's been forming since the 2000s, obviously with all the printing that took place, but it's in more of a broad pattern, essentially, that could be described as a cup and handles. You did a very similar thing back here. This is sort of a micro version of it. We have gold projected to go to around about 3,000. I think our S&P target is only just over 5,000, and then we'll see what it sets up. We'll just have to watch continuation patterns at that point. But ultimately, the reason that we watch this and we look at this as crypto investors and people that try and work out where the cryptocurrency market is because we can look at Bitcoin against the stock market, which we've been saying is in an uptrend. It broke out of a falling wedge. And ultimately, you know, has just been setting up more and more continuation. It had a similar sort of thing to what you saw with Bitcoin with its inverse head and shoulders. This is typically how markets work. You can see it all over the stock market, and we can show you some of that at a later date. And this is just a quick update on everything, and we're going to project what we think is coming for 2024. Ultimately, we are very bullish. And if you want a far more detailed, in-depth video of all of this, do consider becoming a Patreon, because we got a meeting tonight. You know, we do meetings twice a week where we do, it usually goes on for a couple of hours. We look at everything. We really try and work things out. And of course, we look at altcoins that we want to accumulate in the process. But this is Bitcoin against the S&P, which is now in an uptrend and is likely going to see continuation. We also teach something called stage analysis, where we look at the markets in 4 different stages. We break it up into 4 stages, nothing complex. Anyone can learn it. We champion it because we think you will, having a basic understanding of a macro technical guide, be able to outperform all these YouTubers and everyone. I really do believe that, and I'm sure all our Patreons can attest to that. But ultimately, you are now in an uptrend against the S&P. You are now in an uptrend against the NASDAQ. You are now in an uptrend against gold. And this is going to see Bitcoin do well in a market where everything is generally doing well. Remember, we've got the backdrop of rates stopping. We're starting to see rates priced out. We know that when a pivot actually occurs, usually there's negative connotations to that, but we're not at that stage yet. We've got this grace period. The yield curve's still not uninverted. And ultimately, we've got an election year. We've got probably the most amount of stimulus, barring obviously March 2020, to come this year, given the size of the colossal debt bubble. And ultimately, everything looks really set to see further upside continuation. And we're showing you this from a technical point of view. We're not just here saying we're bullish for no reason because the environment on Twitter is. No, we've been bullish and we continue to be bullish, and we're expecting a sensational 2024. What I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days is actually, there are some cryptocurrencies that we now have technical targets to the upside for. So I can project, just like projecting Bitcoin to 42K, we can now start to look at altcoins and where they may be going and give some price predictions for 2024, which I'm sure you guys are all waiting for. You know, we did say we were going to do that. And also this year, we're really going to be focusing on some really interesting projects that are fundamentally needed for crypto, for Web3. You know, a lot of people are trying to reinvent the wheel. However, the wheel simply sometimes just needs upgrading and tinkering with and adding Web3 to it. So Going to be a lot of really interesting things coming out in 2024. Make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you become a subscriber. If you want to take it one step further, consider becoming a Patreon. But we are going to be dropping daily videos again. We're going to be dropping nightly videos and everything in between. And obviously, watch out for the podcasts. Go and check out allincrypto.com. Amazing year ahead of us. Lots of things coming. We think there's going to be the first breakout crypto game, which is going to explode the gaming sector. We think that things like data storage and compute is going to be decentralized essentially, and there's going to be lots of opportunities out of that, and that's going to be a big narrative. And we're also looking at things that are taking the application of blockchain and extending it far more than just Bitcoin does. You know, we're a big fan of Chainlink, which kind of decentralized data, and there's a lot more to come in those areas. So welcome back, guys. It's been a pleasure. You know, I really do miss you guys, and I saw a lot of people asking me where I am, where I've been. Just took a very short break. We are back, hopefully back with a bang. So interesting news in regards to regulations. But overall, we are very bullish on the markets. We're waiting to see some sort of a larger pattern set up for Bitcoin. What we do know is that it is an uptrend and expect the trend to continue. We do have small continuation patterns, but we're not really looking at that. We're really focused on the macro view and looking at where this market's heading as a whole. And the direction, in our opinion, is up, ladies and gentlemen. So strap yourselves in for a sensational, hopefully, 2024. And we'll be here to keep you up to date with the latest and greatest. If you've enjoyed the video, a like is always appreciated. So is a comment. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, ladies and gentlemen. See you in the next.